Well, congratulations, Disney. It looks like we finally learned how to make a good sequel. Hey guys, Caleb here from CDBS Studios, and I do kind of want to apologize in advance if this video seems a little bit half-baked. I have been really struggling this week with finals, and I also have another massive video that I'm planning for the end of December, so I've been putting a lot of time into that. So this video is a little bit half-baked, and I want to apologize in advance. But without further ado, here's my thoughts on Zootopia 2. So I haven't been a huge fan of Disney recently with a bunch of random stuff I don't want to get into right now. And so I wasn't super innate on this movie, but I did eventually go in to see it. And I'm not the hugest fan of the original Zootopia. I mean, I think it's a fine enough movie. It just does have some glaring issues, but I'm actually happy to admit that this film is an improvement. I do think Zootopia 2 is not only the best Disney sequel, but also better than the original, which is shocking to say the least. So, without further ado, let's dive in, and I'm going to give you my spoiler thoughts on why I think Zootopia 2 is not only Disney's best, but potentially only good theatrical sequel. Keep in mind, I said theatrical sequel. I'm going to start this review off a little bit positive and go kind of into some of my feelings on the things. And one thing that I do really like about this sequel is that the characters that carry over from the original actually feel consistent with their how they are in the first film, and they even give them a believable arcs to go on in the sequel, unlike some Disney sequels that I know. Judy and Nick in this movie are still just as charismatic as they are in the first movie, having really great chemistry with one another, having a really good arc in this movie that I did actually really enjoy and thought was really well built up based on the themes of the first movie, which I do really enjoy them characters. I do wish we got a little bit more out of some characters like Chief Bogo, but I understand why they kind of took him out of the plot of this movie. And I do like some of the new characters, of course. Who doesn't love Ke Kwan? I mean, obviously he's amazing in this movie, but I do feel like the Beaver character got a little bit annoying over time, and I didn't love him as much. And I do also think other characters, like, I do really like Patrick Warburton, who shows up in this movie as like the new mayor of Zootopia, and he's a very funny comic relief character that I kind of wish was in the movie a little more. And there's some alternate side characters that I wish got played up a little bit more, but otherwise, the characters in this movie are pretty solid and are pretty positive throughout the movie. And I also like that this movie does what a good sequel should and expands the lore and the world in a believable way, unlike some Disney sequels I know. This movie does a really great job at expanding the vast world of Zootopia that we explore throughout the first movie, and it does really add a lot of lore and backstory to this movie that was very welcome in the long run. I do like the whole integration of the reptiles into this world, and it is a really fun way that they also take us outside of the city occasionally and show us the world that we're living in, and even adding some really cool ideas in there. And also, the movie is just really funny. There are some really good moments in this movie that did get good laughs out of me, although unfortunately some of the humor in this movie does rely on pop culture references. Like there's a couple references in here to things like Back to the Future, The Shining, and that. So for someone like me who knows those movies, of course I got a kick out of those moments, but like the kids that these are, like the young kids that this is marketed to, like there's no way that they're going to understand those references at all unless they've somehow seen those movies, which I don't know why a young kid watching a Disney movie has seen Shining, so whatever. So the film is funny occasionally when it's not doing the pop culture references, and I do think that the themes of the Zootopia franchise are actually handled better in this movie than they are back in the original, as this whole world of Zootopia is meant to be a whole allegory for things like racism and segregation and all that, and I don't like how it's handled in the first movie, as it's kind of really blatantly in your face, and almost every other conversation the character has in the movie somehow relates back to what kind of animal they are. And this movie still has those themes integrated into it, this time through the reptiles, but this movie took a way more subtle approach to its themes, which I think means that it was handled a lot better, because it's not like every other second of the movie they're blatantly spinning in our face like, oh, the reptiles are bad and stuff, which they do occasionally, but at least it's subtle enough to where it doesn't feel like they're forcing the theme down my throat every 5 seconds of the movie. So that's welcome. This is a movie that has definitely a lot of positives that I do really like, and it does make for a sequel that is managing to do a lot of things, in my opinion, better than the original movie. But unfortunately, there are still some negatives with this film. One of the most obvious, or one of the most blatant that I could find in the movie, is that the mystery in this movie that Nick and Judy are trying to solve is a kind of obvious. They make it very obvious in this mystery who's the bad guy, who's the good guy, what the twist is gonna be, and it's really obvious in a lot of places. Some things do catch you by surprise, but for the most part, you pretty much know going in the snakes aren't going to be the bad guys. They got framed by these by this family that's claiming to do stuff. They have some obvious mystery elements that are fun to unlock, but overall the mystery in this movie is really really obvious in a lot of ways, and it really really make you feel like, oh, you know exactly what's coming every other second of the movie, which is not great for the story reasons. And I do also have to bring it up straight up that the twist villain in this movie is very obvious, and I hate to admit that. The first movie, everyone criticizes the first Zootopia by having Bellwether, who basically has no setup at all to be a villain and is basically meant just to be a punch in the face twist villain that shows up to be evil for like 4 minutes of screen time, I'm pretty sure. So it's like, what was the point? And in return, this movie makes this twist villain so obvious that it's not really even a twist. And the thing that got under my skin about it as well is that the second he does do the twist, they make a joke about how obvious he was as a twist villain and the fact that he's just repeating Bellwether, which is like, Disney, did you learn nothing from the critiques we gave you of Zootopia? Are you kidding me? But other than that, there's not a lot of other negatives in this film. They did a pretty decent job at making a movie that has very few glaring issues. There are some more that probably equate to this not being the best movie ever created, which I'll get to when I talk about the score, but this movie is great in a lot of ways, but also does have those couple negatives that creep under my skin and kind of prevent me from giving it any kind of high praise or marks, unfortunately. So there you guys have it. That is my thoughts on Zootopia 2 as an overall film. I think that there's a lot of good things about this movie. Like I mentioned, I don't hate this movie, but it does still have some glaring issues that kind of prevent me from giving any higher score. So I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10. I think it's a really solid movie and definitely better than a lot of the other movies Disney's been pushing out recently, but it still has a lot of glaring issues. And it's easily the best Disney sequel for me because it actually does the things you want a sequel to do, which is keep its world and characters consistent while also offering something new, which is something that this movie does great. Unlike some Disney movies I know. Sorry, I keep bash that movie into the ground, but really I just have to keep bashing it because it's so bad. Anyway, this is a good movie, has some negatives and some positives, and unfortunately some negatives to the positives, so I can't give this movie any higher than a 7 out of 10, but I do still think it's a solid movie, and if you have not seen this movie or are still a little skeptical on it, I'd recommend it. It's a fun little watch just to turn your brain off and watch a little fun animated movie for an hour, which is fun. So anyway, thank you guys all very much for watching this video, and I want to know, if you guys have seen Zootopia 2, what are your thoughts on it? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below, and maybe we can get a conversation going. Without further ado, thank you guys all very much for watching this video, and I hope to see you guys all in the next one. Bye, guys!